Hello, my name is Cheryl Delk-LeGood. I'm the Executive Director for English USA, the Association of English Language Programs in the U.S., and you are listening to EdUp, Accelerated Excellence.
The EdUp Accelerated Excellence podcast is supported by the 2.0 conferences to be held in Las Vegas, April 7th through 9th, 2026. Business leaders, educators, healthcare experts, marketing and tech professionals, and founding entrepreneurs are welcome to take part. Reserve your space today and receive a 15% discount courtesy of EdUp Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE15OFF. That's EDUPXE15OFF. Learn more and register online at the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE15OFF.
Welcome to EdUp Accelerated Excellence, the podcast for the advancement of educational excellence and equity. And I'm your host, Jacob Easley, the second PhD, PMP. And our guest today is the President and CEO of the American Association of Colleges for Teacher Education, Cheryl Holcomb-McCoy. So, Dr. Holcomb-McCoy, will you introduce yourself to the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community, giving voice to your name, and just tell us a bit about what's happening right now at AACTE.
Well, first of all, thank you, Dr. Easley. Jacob, can I call you?
You can, and
okay.
I will call you Cheryl, but that's kind of hard for me.
But you can. Okay. Please do. Thank you for this opportunity to talk a little bit about AACTE, myself, and how I come to this role as CEO and president. I'm a former dean, like you, dean of the School of Education at American University in Washington, D.C., and I'm a former faculty member, department chair, vice provost, had loads of different titles in higher education. American was my fourth university where I've worked. I started at Brooklyn College of the City University of New York, the CUNY system. Went from there to the University of Maryland, College Park. So the Research One sort of environment, and then left there and went to Johns Hopkins. Again, Research One, but also from a private university perspective. Learned a lot there and went into the provost's office. So learned a lot about what happens at that level of leadership. And then came back to DC at American University to literally build a school of education, which was exciting to me that the president and provost at that time saw the power and importance of having anchor institutions within a city. And they wanted their School of Education at American University at that time to help to connect the university with the larger community, not being the federal side of DC, but as we say in DC, on the other side of the river, other side of the park, the people who make Washington, D.C. home. And I don't know if many people know this, but the economic divide in the city, in the district, is huge, one of the largest in the country. And so the issues of equity and access are huge here in the DC area. And so that was my job, was to build a school of education that was addressing these issues of opportunity for students and families in Washington, D.C. So I come with that experience to this role as CEO, because even in DC, which is a small city, which sort of sits like a city and a state all together, we tried a new idea at American University. We developed a teacher pipeline program in partnership with DC Public Schools and Trinity University, which has a community college part of it. We also partnered with some other nonprofits in the city, and we built from scratch this pipeline program, which started in high schools in the District of Columbia, inviting high school students to campus to take courses, 2 courses, free courses in our education school, to get them interested in a career in education, or just to understand the importance of education in our society.
Right.
So we started that, and then started a teaching fellows program, which was a part of that 4-year degree. We also started an early childhood kind of offshoot of this with Trinity for the CDA program. And we had a strong partnership with the chancellor and DC Public Schools, in which the chancellor, Dr. Louis Farabee, guaranteed that he would hire the graduates of this program. And then we said, oh, well, then we'll stay. If you hire them, we are with these students, with our graduates for the first 5 years. We will do coaching, helping them get through those really important induction years. So that is what got me really excited about AACTE, because coming into this job, and as I talk to people all over the country, their interest is in building pipelines like that, building those connections. And so that I bring with me, that's the excitement that I bring with me to this job.
So clearly, I mean, AACTE is in DC, but you have been home or housed in the DC area, Johns Hopkins, which is not too far away, American University, working with Trinity, DC public schools. So, I mean, your work, it's almost like seeing both sides. So it's on the ground as a leader, but also practitioner, and now head of an association that is designed to support educator preparation programs.
Absolutely. So it's a nice full circle. I started as a kindergarten teacher and a school counselor right outside of DC in Maryland. So it really is like full circle in DC. There are only a couple of universities in the DC area where I have not worked. But I have friends there, colleagues there. But, this role gives me the opportunity to see the wider picture, to see, what's happening in Tennessee, what's happening in Oklahoma, what's happening in New York, New Jersey. And there are similarities, but, obviously there are differences, because each corner of the country has its own workforce issues, has its own demographics. People's beliefs about education differ some from state to state and different parts of states. But overall, Jacob, what I have come to realize is that people care about what happens to children. Mm-hmm. People want opportunity. Education is perceived as we used to say, the great equalizer, but education is the way to social mobility. Many families and communities depend on schools to sort of help them move to whatever goal they have for their children and for themselves. So that is the common link, is that we care about our children, and we see our children and our offspring as being the future, and we want the very best for them.
We definitely do. We do.
Yeah, we do. And so that keeps me going, because that is the area that we have common interests.
So you've already alluded to the fact that your career started as a kindergarten teacher, and then later as a family therapist. That probably speaks to your warm nature. And how have those early years personal experience shape your philosophy of leadership that you bring to AACTE?
Collaborative leadership. There is no way you could be a kindergarten teacher, first of all, without being collaborative with parents, communities, and people who also share the love of their children. And I believe, as a teacher, once you were in my world, as my student in my classroom, or when I was a counselor, or just a student in the entire school, you were a part of me, and I saw every child being my responsibility, with the vast array of differences across all of those students. I bring that's my leadership style, is really to convene, to collaborate, to see people for who they are, not for who they aren't. Mm-hmm. Let me say that again, to see people for their strengths and who they are, instead of who they aren't. And so I come to my leadership role with this notion that no matter what state we're in, we're bringing strengths to the table, and we are trying to find that common ground to do what's right by all of our children and families across every aspect of our country. So I bring that with me. So that notion of respect, the notion of rigor, that's something we often don't like to use that word because it can be biased in what we perceive as being rigorous or not. Mm-hmm. But I see rigor as meaning we want to determine what works for all students. And some of what works could be different, right? Right. But excellent at the same time. So having high expectations is my notion of what rigor is. And so we need that in education to have high expectations for ourselves as educators, that we're meeting the needs of students. And students are coming to us with such diverse learner needs. So it's a tall task for educators. And I also want to just say, too, that having been a teacher, a school counselor, having grown up, both of my parents are educators, were educators, I think the education field gets a bad rap. The myth that educators aren't doing enough, right? When I have seen firsthand how hard educators work every day, but yet we are blamed for a lot that goes on. And right now I feel like educator preparation is taking a hit from, the discussion about terminating the grants that actually help fund the most exciting and innovating ideas, new ideas within our field. The number of new ideas that we see across our institutions are just enormous, but yet people don't understand what we do, and it's not highly valued. We see that in compensation for teachers. We see that on university campuses and schools and colleges of education. And so I am also disappointed by the perception of education not being as important as other fields when we are the bedrock of everything else. Right. And so I see this role too of almost like a campaign to talk about how important teachers and educators, counselors are in schools. And that excites me about this role. That's why I bring all of that with me to this role.
So we're speaking with Cheryl Holcomb-McCoy, President and CEO of AACTE. I want to circle back to a statement you made about having high expectations or rigor. And can you just briefly, because we have a lot I want to get into, and I want to talk a bit more about the core work of AACTE, but can you distinguish for us the difference between high expectations and high standards?
Yeah, so high standards and high expectations standards to me are things that are the non-negotiables. These are the things that have to be in place. Standards around clinical experiences and the research that helps to guide us to know that this is what is most important to ensure that a teacher is ready for a classroom. Those are standards, that these are the non-negotiables. Right. In my mind. High expectations is about what we think. It's more of a mindset shift, right? That we expect that we have the best research. That in my mind, I expect that I have representation across my faculty to represent the children that my students will work with. These are mindsets that we come to the work with, which are also non-negotiables if you think about it. But they're not necessarily, and some of them are part of our standards, which sadly, when it comes to diversity, equity, and inclusion, I think we run the risk of not having those high expectations, and those high expectations turn into standards. I think we run the risk of losing that within our standards because of the rollback of diversity and inclusive practices and thinking about equity, ensuring that every child has a chance, and knowing that every child needs different resources. They come to us different, and they need different resources to be successful. So expectations and standards are closely aligned, but we tend to think of standards being set by some group of people.
Authoritative body, yes.
There's some group of people that say these are the standards, these are the things we should be looking for, which should be evidence-based. But high expectations is really our mindset that's driving us to do the work. And again, I believe those mindsets should be standards, but we're looking at a time now that those expectations are being questioned.
Yeah, particularly you talked about this. You didn't name it as an asset-driven perspective, but if you approach educator preparation from an asset perspective, understanding that every student, potential educator, comes with his or her own talents and how to develop those.
Absolutely.
Now complement the standards. So thank you for that.
Which is aligned with how we should be acting in classrooms too, right? So as educators, as teacher educators, counselor educators, leader educators, we should be managing our programs to prepare the next generation of educators. We should be preparing them in that way. So we should be seeing our students that way that are in our programs, and then our students then will replicate that when they're in schools. Very, very important.
Thank you for listening to EdUp Accelerated Excellence. This episode is supported by the 2.0 conferences to be held in Las Vegas, Nevada, USA, April 7th through 9th, 2026. Business leaders, educators, healthcare experts, marketing and tech professionals, and founding entrepreneurs are welcome to take part. Reserve your space today and receive a 15% discount courtesy of EdUp Accelerated Excellence with the code EDUPXE15OFF. That's EdUPXE15OFF. Check out the details in the show notes or learn more and register online at the2conf.com. That's the2conf.com with the code EDUPXE15OFF.
So I want to go back to your work at American. So, but also throughout your career, you have championed anti-racist programming in education. What does truly anti-racist teacher preparation look like in practice, and where do you see the biggest challenge for achieving anti-racist programming?
Well, first of all, right now is that we can even say the word anti-racism. I mean, that's a big challenge that we are able to say that word and it be embraced as a positive rather than a negative. Anti-racism doesn't mean anti-white. It doesn't mean anti any group of people. What it means is that we don't want a society that is somehow oppressing groups of people that have been historically minoritized or racially oppressed. And so that's really important, that when you think about being an anti-racist, you're working toward ensuring that there are no racist policies, racist beliefs, racist practices that would hold children or youth back. Not just, let me just say this, I mean, when you are fully engaged in anti-racist practice, and this is something that we found at American University, if we're really doing our job around anti-racism, not only are Black and brown students doing better, white students are doing better. It is advantageous to everyone, right? That we have an environment that is inclusive, where there is no bias, no racism, no gender bias. There is, we are watching for all of those things. So when you think about anti-racist practice, we could prove that all of our students were being successful, not just Black and brown. So it's not as if, we're just doing this work and focusing on our Black students or our brown students. But surely we are recognizing the historical nature of this country in which racism has been a part of the DNA, the belief system of people. And so at American, we looked at coursework, we looked at all of our procedures around admissions. We looked at the books and the resources that our students were reading to ensure that they were inclusive of different stories, narratives about different groups, including our Jewish students, including our Muslim students, our Black students, our Caribbean students, our students from, it was just inclusive. We wanted to have the stories and the narratives of everyone, and for us to be critical readers and thinkers around those differences. That is what anti-racism is. And so sadly, some see anti-racism as being anti-white or something to fear. And I would say anti-racism actually enhanced our overall culture and community for faculty, our students, our staff. And so that was that's what we did for about 6 or 7. I was at American University for 8 years. And out of those 8 years, the last 4 years, or since 2020, we committed ourselves to creating an anti-racist educational community after the death of George Floyd. So from 2020 until today.
Yeah, I think it's certainly steeped in this idea of anti-discriminatory practices, and starting somewhere. So anti-racism is sort of being the, I would say, the entree into a broader perspective of anti-discrimination, and it's hard work.
It is.
Whether you say
you're actually going against what others sort of, the norms of higher ed. When we decided to look at our admissions process and the way in which we wanted to check bias within the system, within our process, and the hard work that our faculty did to ensure that they were giving every applicant a full opportunity to show their expertise and why they should be in a particular program, to looking at the questions that's asked. Every assignment was just reviewed deeply. How we do graduations and ceremonies, it was, it became a part of all of us, to this commitment. And it's a beautiful thing to see when you see people come together to embrace one another, to show respect, to show a sense of wanting to be in community with difference. Like I said, it is still one of the most inclusive environments that I've ever been a part of at American. That is what it is that vibe, as the kids say, that's a part of my leadership style. It's to be more collaborative and open to difference. That's what it's all about.
So I can just imagine that had to be a wonderful feeling. I've had that in environments, but it's not something that you find in every location or locale.
Well, we had the privilege of, like I said, because we were a new school, we were within the College of Arts and Sciences. It was a very small school, about 200 students. We moved and became a standalone school in 2017, 18. And with the blessing of the trustees saying, go do it. And so I was able to hire faculty, and I was able to create this environment, which most deans don't get that chance, right? You can't create something almost from scratch. So that was a real privilege. And to have an institution that was open to that work meant the world to us as a school of education.
So you have now been the CEO of AACTE for what, 4 months?
4 months, almost 5 months since January 5th.
So I'm going to ask you about your visioning, but before we get to visioning, I just want to give you an applause. I'm clapping. I had a chance to spend time with you briefly at AACTE for Washington Week in DC. So can you describe for the community, what is Washington Week?
So Washington Week is every June, and we, AACTE, we sponsor AACTE members and some non-members to come to Washington, essentially to lobby for educator preparation. This year was a special year because of all of the things that are happening within our space, the termination of grants, the dismantling of the Department of Ed, the research arm of the Department of Education going away, or down to minimal kinds of offices that are there. IES, the Institute for Education Sciences, going away completely. And the Office of Civil Rights being changed dramatically, financial aid, all of those things that are so important to education, administrators, deans, faculty, students. So we bring all of our members that can come to Washington and we give them training. The first 2 days are just full of robust training about how to talk to members of Congress, talking about those issues that are really important. And this year, we even outlined what we want to put before Congress, specifically as far as the upcoming budgets and the appropriations and the reconciliation bill. So we had we wanted to have a very, very distinct and clear ask of our members of Congress, and so that every AACTE member that had a meeting was asking for the same thing. We had over 100 meetings across the board, which is unheard of. It's the most we've ever had. We had the Rabin Group, which is a consulting firm, help us plan all of those meetings. And most of our members had an opportunity to meet with either a staff or a member of Congress from their state. So this is what made this wonderful. If you were, from New York, you would meet with New York representatives or a senator from New York, which made it more personal. And we know that members of Congress like to talk to their own constituents. So it was wonderful. I thought it was electric. I thought our folks were on fire. They were well prepared for the last day on the Hill. All of the comments that I heard back was that people not only did this really intensive work, but they had fun doing it. So, we had great weather, but
how often do you hear people say they had fun speaking with elected officials?
When do you hear that, right? So it was fun. We had a great hotel space that was truly engaged. It was engaging, and it was just the right size for the group. So we were excited by what we were hearing back from our members. But most importantly, our members of Congress heard from us directly. And we are hopeful, fingers crossed, that with this next budget, which was X'd out of the president's budget, the teacher training grants like TQP, C, TSL, IES grants, those were zero in his budget. Mm-hmm. And so what we're hoping is that the Senate will not go along with that, and it'll go back to the House of Representatives, and we'll have a better outcome for us with another round of conversations. So it was a chance for us to show how powerful we are and how we understand what we want and how it's good for communities and families to have educator preparation folks fighting for educators and for children across the country. And I think that really came through from what I could see. So fingers crossed that we'll be able to get the results we want.
So I actually happen to have one of the handouts here with me. I carry, this is one of my souvenirs. So reconciliation from the bill that was passed by the House was one issue. But speaking primarily to those folks in the Senate side, but should it go back to the House? Mm-hmm. But I'm going to read here. It says that the proposal for reconciliation, that legislation eliminates federal loan programs, restricts access to Pell Grants, and strips critical protections for struggling borrowers. And so AACTE was asking for our elected officials to ensure that we don't touch or undermine access to high quality educator preparation programs, primarily through federal aid, and then asking that elected officials continue to fund at prior or greater levels particular programs like you mentioned, Teacher Quality Partnership Grant, Teacher and School Leader Incentive or TSL program, the Hawkins Center's Excellence Grant Program, and these are all for, and others, but these are all for the 2026 fiscal year. So those appropriations have not yet been laid out, I understand.
Right.
So getting ahead of issues while also addressing issues that are already in play.
Absolutely, because we're fighting for the future right now. And what became really clear is that this bill came forward, but many of our members of Congress, some of them didn't understand the true impact. I'm not sure how you can not know the impact of cutting back on aid for students, because that will cut out many constituents of almost all of our members of Congress. There are students within their districts who need Pell Grants, who need aid. And so I think, really elevating that, I think, was really important. That we met with one Republican congressman that just hadn't thought about the impact on his district. And so we left that meeting feeling good that we had educated him on the impact, not only on educator preparation, but also on workforce development and the economic stability of rural and suburban and urban communities. This is not a red, purple, blue state issue. This is our country's issue around ensuring that we have a teacher workforce that's ready to go. If we take away aid and take away any aspect of what we've asked for, the result could be harmful to our workforce issues. So I came out of the week excited that we had educated our members of Congress. And we had done that seamlessly. We were prepared for it, and everyone was talking about the same things. So it was a good week. And we might have to do it again. Might be calling people to come back before we get to next year, because these issues are being voted on all the time. So, for us at AACTE, what's become really clear to me is that our advocacy is needed all the time. It's not just Washington Week. I have a congressional hearing tomorrow around screen time, so I'll be on the Hill with testimony about the concerns around screen time are one thing that we can agree on, but we need technology for many of our students who depend on technology for success. So it's a balancing act.
Right.
But we also need training and the research. So this goes back to, the core is that, research informs practice and policy. So without the research piece, we are lost in understanding where we should make the investments for the future. If we don't have counselors in our schools, that grant, the school-based mental health grant, was also terminated. If we don't have enough counselors in schools with high needs, then we'll continue to see the effects of untreated mental health issues. So, and then that, does affect workforce. It does affect the economic stability of a community, of families. All of this is so interwoven. So we constantly at AACTE, we have to make that case before our leaders. And so that's a major part of my job that I was expecting, but I was not expecting so much all up front in the first 4 months. But it's truly an honor to serve and to represent my profession in this way.
So I want to ask you to think about forecasting, because it's been 4 months, and clearly pulling off a feat like Washington Week, bringing folks from across the nation to the Capitol is no small feat. But how do you envision the future of educator preparation evolving in light of the current political, social, and technological shifts? And what will be the role of AACTE in that new vision?
Yeah, so I think, tapping into the expertise that we already have as part of our organization is going to be key. So we have experts across the country in many different aspects of education, and we need to uplift that strong research and advocacy. I truly believe we need students involved. The wonderful work that the Home Scholars Program continues to do. Year 35, actually, we're going to be celebrating 35 years of the Homes Program next year, so I'm excited about that. Yay! But we have other students that are non-home students that are also doing wonderful work, and we want to bring them in, make them a part of our annual meeting, look at just engage in conversations about their new ideas around innovation and education. So I am all about the future, so bringing some of our new educators that are students into the fold. I'm also really, I think we really, and I can't say really enough, we need to have even more partnerships with organizations that are aligned or affiliated with us. Our state level affiliates are so important to our work. The Asker folks are part of us. That's where we get our strength. That's where we are informed about what's happening, as we say, boots on the ground in our states, and really understanding what needs to be done at the state level, given that that's where it already was there. Anyway, I know this administration says putting everything back in the states. Well, that's where it's always been. But we want to make sure that AACTE is supporting and working together in that way. The other area that I want to see us really, that we're already focused on is the professional learning and upskilling, if you will, of new leaders, new deans, new department chairs, faculty, and giving them the professional development that they need, whether it be about AI, artificial intelligence, or how to lead through a storm, right? All of the things that have been really important to new deans over the last year and a half or so. How do you still remain committed to issues of diversity, inclusion, and equity in this kind of a climate in which is anti-DEI? We need to build community because there's strength and power in community. And then there are skill sets that I think we all need. I don't know about you, Jacob, but when I became a dean, there was no class in my doctoral program about how to be a dean or how to be a leader. I just sort of kind of fell into these administrative roles, and you just sort of have to follow your gut, or somebody coaches you or advises you, but there's no training typically for new university administrators, right? And so that is a role that we can take on and help with. I see AACTE being the perfect place for that kind of development. There are other groups doing that. We still work with Deans for Impact and other groups, but I do think there are some areas that I think that we can help leaders, new leaders, seasoned leaders develop. That's a necessity right now for us to cultivate a new group of leaders for the future. So those are just a few of the areas that we're looking at strategically for the future, and using our annual meeting as a place for community building, coaching on site, many mentoring sessions. I call it speed dating. I went to a conference not too long ago, and there were these many like mentoring speed dating. You were kind of going to mentors and people who were there to help with your problems or a problem. Having that on site, and also having on site career opportunities for our students, particularly graduate students who are looking for new leadership opportunities, professorial opportunities. We can do that on site at AACTE for educator preparation. So utilizing, a lot of this is not new. We have the mechanism, we have the expertise, but it really is building that into some of our existing programming.
Right. So I'm hearing a couple of things out of this. Generational renewal, because I heard you mention several times about bringing in student body. So I'm assuming that's undergraduate who perhaps might be going into teacher or education roles, and then graduate students who may be going into leadership roles, counseling roles, but who may also be pursuing, as you mentioned earlier, formal positions in educator preparation. So generational renewal and member engagement. So that's sort of what I heard as an underscore.
You got it.
And I think the generation renewal is thinking about, for example, 2026 fiscal year budget appropriations. We're talking about the future of the profession as well, and how do we prepare those to follow in our stead.
And there's one other area I didn't mention, because this, and I'm not sure why I should have mentioned this up front, is that showcasing our research on educator preparation is also going to be important. Okay. We can fill that gap, since we don't know when research is going to come back to the Department of Ed. That's a prominent part of the federal role. If it does not, then we could be that gap. We could fill that gap of providing research and research support, but also the status of educator preparation. I mean, Jackie King has been wonderful in providing us that research, but we could grow to offer even more white papers, research reports. That is going to be essential as we're thinking about new ideas, innovative ideas about how to prepare teachers and educators in a better way. And also, we already have the Journal of Teacher Education, but we also can bring pieces of that wonderful resource. We can repurpose and get it out to the masses, right? They're not, sadly, the only people that read journals are typically academics, right? But one thing that we're learning that families and communities and people in the community, nonprofits, they also need to have access to that good information. So how can we repurpose what's already in our journal and start disseminating some of that research? So there are many ways, like I said, to build off of what we already have. And it's just sort of repurposing and making sure that people can understand our research and also utilize it more and understand it, so we can disseminate it to others to spread the word.
Thank you for that. And we're listening to Dr. Cheryl Holcomb-McCoy, President and CEO of AACTE, the American Association for Colleges of Teacher Education. Cheryl, can you share with the EdUp Accelerated Excellence community what's next down the road for AACTE in terms of activities and resources? And your own work. I understand you have a book that's in the works, and I want to say it out loud because you mentioned this a while back. And so this is our public accountability president.
All right.
So can you tell us about, I know there's the Leadership Institute.
Yes. The Leadership Institute is coming up June 24th through the 26th. Please, if you see this before then, hope you can come. It is a chance for us, again, to build community with education deans, department chairs, associate deans, assistant deans, leaders, aspiring leaders in education. All are welcome. Really, really happy this year. We'll have a lot of sessions that are obviously focused on the time, the moment that we're in now. We also have a session where some of our funders will be there to talk about what will funding look like in the future for research and practice, since the federal grants might go away. We also have one speaker that's going to talk about capacity building for leaders in the future. And we have the mayor of Baltimore coming, and he's going to talk about leadership and the importance of education in his city. And how he's looking to universities to partner with them in education efforts. So, my future goal is that whatever city we're in, that we are reaching out to local constituents and legislators for them to get to know us. And so this first Leadership Academy with me in office, we reached out to Mayor Scott. So it is exciting. That's around the corner. But what's up? We're going to continue to fight for educator preparation. We're going to continue to build. That's important. All the things I talked about are areas that we can, that are already with us, and we can continue to build upon that strong foundation. We're going to continue to tap our membership for expertise, so that we can go further with knowledge that we have in our community already. And we hope to expand, as I call it, the educator preparation landscape, to bring in more of the people who care about educator preparation, our K-12 district folks, community college folks. There are lots of nonprofits, ed tech groups, accreditation folks. We have so many strategic partners. We want to bring everyone together under our tent, and for us to stay connected. And as I always say, we're stronger together as we move forward. I know it's a little, something that's followed me. I say that all the time, but it is very powerful when we come together. We're not debating one another or trying to leave folks out. We can no longer do that. Because that will kill all of us. And when I say kill, it will kill our organizations and us as a profession. So I will continue to build bridges, create opportunities for people to come together, convening. That's our special sauce at AACTE, and that's what's ahead.
Your book.
Yeah, my book.
I want to push it. Don't be bashful around it.
The good news is that the book is at the publisher, Harvard Education Press, and I've written a book called Beyond the Doll Test, Affirming and Uplifting Black Students in Schools. And it's a book about the doll test. If people aren't familiar, Dr. Mamie and Kenneth Clark in the 40s did a series of doll tests. Simply, here's a black doll and a white doll. Which one do you prefer? And overwhelmingly, Black and white students said they preferred the white dolls. Which doll is happier? Which one is smarter? And it's the white doll. And so the impact, the Clarks back in the 40s said the impact of racism on the psyche of Black and white kids was damaging. And so as their research was part of the foundation of Thurgood Marshall's Brown versus Board of Education case. And my book is really saying that we haven't gotten beyond those doll tests yet. We're still challenged by images of oneself as being somehow inferior. In schools, we have policies that are still very much laden with racist beliefs, bias, anti-Black racism. And so in this book, I give real cases of when those times are, and my observations in schools of when policies work against Black students and how we can turn those around, using self-efficacy theory, using Black psychology. We often forget, too, those theorists that came about in the 60s and 70s that said that because of enslavement and because of Jim Crow laws, because of civil rights, the need for civil rights for Black people, it had impacted Black students. And so in schools, we needed to ascribe to this sense of community and strength, as you called it, asset-based work. That's where all these Black psychologists, many of them white psychologists actually, but believing in the psychology of Black people given the history, said that's what we needed to do, just what you said. And so that's what this book is about. It sounds so simple at times, but it is not. And so this book is written for counselors, it's written for teachers, it's written for educators in general. But it is a lot of counseling in it too, relating back to what counselors can do to help correct some of these policies and practices that we see in school.
So I think that's going to be an amazing asset. Just to recap, for those interested in engaging with AACTE, there's a Leadership Academy scheduled to occur June 23rd through the 26th in Baltimore. Mm-hmm. And Dr. Cheryl Holcomb-McCoy has a new book coming out.
In fact, it will likely be launched around our annual meeting time in February.
Oh, great. So the book is Beyond the Doll Test. Mm-hmm. So, Cheryl, thank you for this opportunity to learn with and from you here at EdUp Accelerated Excellence.
Thank you, Jacob.
A special thanks to our research assistant, Emily Bloom, a recent graduate of Fordham University's Mental Health Counseling Program. Congratulations, Emily! And we want to hear from you. If you have feedback on this or other episodes, or would like to nominate a guest, contact us online at edupxe.com. That's edupxe.com.
Thank you for engaging with EdUp Accelerated Excellence, a member of the EdUp Experience Network of educational podcasts. You can find this and other episodes on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Radio, and other outlets where you listen to your favorite podcasts. If you like this episode, don't forget to follow us and share within your network. To leave a comment or suggest a guest, contact us online at edupxe.com.